They'll announce it. Here's the agenda.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of February 5th, 2022, 2024. It's great to see so many people out to our meeting. The District of Metchosin conducts its business on the Coast Salish territory, and we work to increasingly be mindful of our commitment to a more inclusive governance with our neighbors, specifically and I will acknowledge the First Nation governments with whom we are committed to building stronger relationships, the Shiano First Nation and the Sioux First Nation. So welcome, Council. We have the agenda before you. We have a number of different late edition items on pink paper here. I would propose that we take number 1, letters from Bev Bacon, Morgan Yates, and Joseph Kalenda regarding 1050 Matheson Lake Road to 9I. The replacement fire hall opportunity correspondence from Bev Bacon, Avro Yoakum, Barb Sawatsky, 9J. And the new business request for proposal, disaster risk reduction climate adaptation proposal, to 11A. With that, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved, Mayor Little.
Moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comment? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. We have no presentations this evening, but I invite members of the public for the public participation part. Everybody has 4 minutes, and we'll time, since we have a crowd here, I'll time everybody. And if you could identify yourself with your name and the road you live on. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Ernie Chang. I live on Olympic View Drive, and it's a honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to be here in front of you to give you an update on the proposal, on the vision I gave in late 2023 on a Metchosin Natural History Initiative. In that period of time, I have diligently spoken to more than 30 organizations and people. They include members of council, the Metchosin Foundation, the Chief Administrative Officer and the Fire Chief, MEASC, biodiversity people like Andy McKinnon, Kim Luther, Gary Fletcher from Marine Ecology Reserves, the natural plant people, APRM, and so on. And there are more people that I will be consulting. And Johnny Carline has been very kind in providing input. 2 things that came about from this very strongly. One is the concept and principle was adopted as being positive by everybody. The idea that we might have a natural history venue in which the groups that are interested in preservation, restoration, appreciation of nature could showcase themselves. But the other is that there's a real challenge in finding a venue because there's the old school, which is ideal, is, got only very limited space. So I want to say that we've amended the concept So instead of saying we need a dedicated venue, it is, why don't we have a mixed-use facility for a room and call it the themed room in natural history and have the posters from different organizations along the walls and maybe some exhibits on tables along the walls. Then, as a mixed-use facility, it can be rented on a commercial basis to enterprises or on a community basis to community groups. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is that Andy McKinnon, among others, said, you know, you really got to have some kind of a steering committee, and I totally agree. You know, I'm tired of saying I am writing. Instead, it should be we are writing, right? Because this is something that really we hope captures the spirit of Metchosin values. So I will just conclude this by saying all of that stuff that I talked about is in this, including a very simple tick box of, yeah, I can support this, you know, it looks like that. And I'll finally wrap up by saying that the name, I was asked whether we could have a better name. So we started with this name, Metchosin Natural History Clubhouse. And people said, no, that's kind of restrictive to have a clubhouse. So then I said, well, how about the Metchosin Natural History Initiative? That was all right. Then they said, well, how about celebrating Metchosin natural history? Well, that's a little bit better. But today, I came up with this. The Collaborative Habitat Appreciation of Rural Metchosin. Now, in case you hadn't noticed, the Collaborative Habitat Appreciation of Rural Metchosin spells charm. Thank you. Appreciate your time. And I'm going to leave this for you. If anyone's interested, you can pick it up from the exit desk. And, you know, if you want to support it, just sign or give it to an organization. Thank you.
Chris Moore, 4545 William Head Road. Actually intended to speak tonight to as many as 5 separate items, because some of them are time sensitive and directly related to our OCP. But in light of what I would like to address first, that might be pushing it a little bit. I also recognize that there's clearly a hot ticket item on this evening's agenda, and I'll choose my subsequent topic accordingly. My first point relates to the district's operational policy and protocol with respect to public participation at council and committee meetings. This is based on some recent observances during the month of February in the context, I believe, of committee meetings, but it hardly matters. At that time, one speaker at the meeting in question clocked in at just under 13 minutes, and later on, a subsequent party spoke for almost 12. I'm sure you're aware that your constituents highly, highly appreciate this broad opportunity that we have to address council. I mean, it doesn't happen everywhere, but to indulge public participants to this extent is, I suggest, in nobody's interest. It doesn't take a lot of time for those who wish to speak to invest the time to prepare in advance, make notes, and even to do a dry run in the interest of timing. In the early days of your term, council adhered to a 4-minute limit for speakers, and this I know for sure because I got called out on that more than once. So what's the bottom line? The current lack, not always but often, of observance to these time constraints for public participation is, I suggest, a disservice, not only to council and staff, but also to the various note takers and the public at large. So by all means, extend it out to 5 minutes if you think that's something reasonable to do. but in the interest of everybody, please reinforce your previous policy, as this current scenario doesn't serve anybody. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ken Figge. I live on Mary Hill Place, and I brought my own light. There we go. Honorable Mayor, distinguished council women and councilmen, and my humble and chosen residents. As I said, my name is Ken Figge, and my wife Diane, who will be reading later, and I have lived on Mary Hill Place for 41 years. We've raised our 2 children here, and over the years have used the trail at the south end of Weirs Beach countless times as a safe access to the beach. Metchosin has offered us a safe place to live, raise our children, and supported our active rural lifestyle. Thank you very much for that. Our children, their friends, and the neighbors' grandchildren have used this trail extensively as a way to the beach, especially during the summer months where full days were spent exploring and enjoying and just being at the beach. This trail is shown on the official Metchosin Parks and Trails map. The current BC Assessment Authority also shows this trail, named as Pearson Road. This was always a natural trail winding down to the beach. In July of 1995, our neighbor, Don Knowles, approached council and was given permission by council to upgrade the trail and build stairs and handrails. This was done under the authority of the Parks Advisory Committee and its approval. In May of 2014, the 14th Juanita Scouts revitalized the trail under the leadership of Shelley Donaldson and the Parks Director at that time, Brent Donaldson. This was done to ensure safe passage for future trail users. A new trail sign was also installed at the head of the trail at this time. This trail has been a vital part of the community for the plus 41 years we have lived here. Metchosin places high value on the many parks and trail systems we have for all the residents to enjoy. Let's continue that tradition. It has been close to 10 years since any revitalization has been done to this trail. As a retired volunteer Metchosin firefighter, I can see the need for a safe and quick access to or exit off the south end of Weirs Beach in the event of an emergency. William Henry Road has become a much busier road these days, as well as Pearson College Drive has also seen increased traffic. Who knows how busy William Henry Road will become in the future? We need this trail and the safety it provides as an alternate access to Weirs Beach. We would like to see the necessary work done to reopen this trail as soon as possible, ensuring this trail is safe for current and future Metchosin residents, and that includes my grandchildren. Thank you. No, it's not my pen. This is yours.
Mayor and Council, thank you. My name is Diane Figge. I live in Mary Hill Place. I've been asked by my neighbor, Paul Hooper, who could not be here tonight, to read this letter to Council. Dear Mayor, Metchosin Council, I hope this letter finds you well. I am Paul Hooper, and I have asked Diane Figge, my neighbor, to read this letter since I am unable to attend the council meeting on February 5th. I'm writing to request the reopening of the trail at the south end of Weirs Beach. As an avid hiker, mountain biker, and resident of this community for over 28 years, I believe that reopening the trail would have numerous benefits for our residents and visitors alike. My wife, Marianne, and I reside and own the property at 207 Mary Hill Place. Our residence happens to be the closest property to the trailhead that doesn't have waterfront access. In addition, I have used this trail on average up to 150 times per year. Hence, I consider myself one of the most impacted by the trail closure. The trail in question has been a valuable recreation resource, providing a space for exercise, relaxation, and connecting with the marine environment. Its closure has left a void in my life. The community impacts the well-being of those who regularly used it. As a reminder, this trail is on the official Metchosin Parks and Trails map and has been a public trail for almost 100 years. Thus, I am disappointed that we seem to be decreasing the trail network rather than adding to it. Please refer to the attached letter. I also suggest that continued closure has a direct negative impact on our property value, as well as other neighboring properties. As a measure of the last resort, continued closure would force me to appeal the property value through the BC Property Assessment Appeal Board. I would also encourage my neighbors to make a similar appeal due to the removal of this community amenity. I have worked on a BC Summer Trail crew and have been a certified risk management consultant with the BC Ministry of Finance. In my opinion, a risk assessment of this trail would be very low. In addition to various simple migration, clearing brush, digging out the steps, garbage removal, several activities that I volunteer on this trail by myself almost every year. Municipal liability insurance should cover the rest of the liabilities. A final most important role. My wife and I moved to this property from the prairies with our 2 girls over 28 years ago. When we bought the property, one of the main features that convinced us to move to Metchosin was the trail access to the beach. I've spent countless hours at the beach with my daughters as they grow up, and now enjoy taking my 2-year-old granddaughter there to explore. The potential obstacle that she would have to currently endure with the trail closed. We have to walk along William Head Road to access the beach via the end of Sandgate Road. This includes a blind corner at the intersection of William Head and Pearson College Drive, and vehicles tend to drive quite quickly along this section. Therefore, I do feel the trail closure should be considered a safety concern for those wanting to access the beach from the Pearson College Drive area. In closing, I understand there may have been reasons for the trail's closure, but I would like to highlight the positive impact it had on our community before. By reopening the trail, we can promote a healthier lifestyle, boost community engagement, and create a positive environment for residents of all ages. Additionally, the trail serves as an important connector within our community, fostering a sense of unity and shared space. I believe that reopening it would contribute to the overall improvement of our neighborhood. I am more than willing to collaborate with council, provide any necessary assistance, or address any concerns regarding the trail's reopening. I believe that together we can enhance the quality of life for everyone in our community. I support any reopening option. I just request that a decision be made now so that it can be ready for the summer. I support the petition and look forward to positive results. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to a positive response and the possibility of enjoying the reopened trail soon. Sincerely, Paul Cooper. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Hello, my name is Jean Enright, and I'm here concerning the trail that's been closed at Weirs Beach. So my husband and I have lived at Weirs Beach for about 45 years. In our family, we've had 3 children who've been fortunate to be close to this beach. Anybody who has been lucky enough to spend any time in this beach has felt the magic, whether it's strolling barefoot in the white sand or dipping in the cold, sparkly water, witnessing amazing wildlife, or just beachcombing after a storm. But the main reason I am here tonight is to support this trail that has been closed for almost a year and a half. I have collected signatures. That's mainly what I've done for mainly the people that are concerned about this. And these signatures are from people around the area of Weirs Beach. One notable signee is Chris Pratt, who grew up playing on Weirs Beach. Chris turns 100 years old in May, and he played on this beach as a child. He is of opinion that when Pearson College was surveyed, this was in the mid-70s, and built, yes, the right-of-way was extended to the high tide line, so this trail was part of Pearson College Drive. I've also been in contact with teachers from Pearson College, and they highly support reopening this trail, and I will get signatures from them, and maybe even from the director of the college, but he's been very busy in meetings. So I feel the trail is a very public right-of-way for everyone. It is the most wonderful place for children, for everybody, every walks of life, and it should be opened, and we should enjoy this trail for everybody. It's been closed, and it's quite criminal that it's been closed. I'm upset about it because it's been a public trail forever. And I know that you have a budget to deal with, and I understand that. And in the past, we've had people of Metchosin area that have actually rebuilt the trail for free. I know that the risk liability, my son is a lawyer and I've gone over this with him, is very low, and it is a small trail, and we want to keep it sort of rural and rustic, but safe. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eric White, Chosen Road. At the last Special Finance Committee meeting, Councillor Donaldson said that she was interested in petitioning the provincial government to make it harder for farmers to get farm status. Please don't do that. This is devastating to people like me because I personally have to make $10,000 to achieve farm status every year, which I haven't been able to do up until this year. It's incredibly difficult to pay a water bill that I know can be 1/100th of the cost because it goes from being $2.10 per 100 cubic meters down to 2 cents per 100 cubic meters. So it's a devastating cost to me. And I'm glad that it's easy for you and they could easily double it to, you know, weed out the so-called not real farmers. But it's only going to make it harder for the people who are real farmers. It's only going to make it harder for the people who have chosen to maintain their farmland, because who wants to pay the full price when they can rent it out to someone like me who will farm it for them and save them thousands of dollars. So I implore you, please don't push this on the federal or the provincial government to make it harder. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Joe Van Amstel, 5145 Sandgate Road. Beachfront resident since 1988. I am speaking in support of the reopening of the southern access to Weirs Beach. I have been using this dedicated access for 35 years and my wife for 50 years. From 1974 to 2001, I was employed as the park manager at the West Shore Parks and Recreation Center, responsible for design and construction of all outdoor site amenities and satellite parks. I submit this background information only as reference to support my following recommendations as an appropriate resolve to the beach access remediation. Preferred structure, design, truss cross braced gangway, 3 to 4 inch heavy box tubing aluminum, steps or ramping pending on incline, expanded sheet aluminum, box locks, caissons for concrete. These materials and good design will provide best value, low maintenance, long life, reduced viability, good functionality, and pleasure of use. Currently available on Facebook Marketplace is aluminum ramp surplus material. I spoke with Councillor Sukin on January 21st, I believe, and forwarded the information I received from the seller. The seller can supply, deliver, and reconfigure the desired design. Further discussions and on-site assessment would be required. I've got information on the ramps.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Hi, Lisa Geeby, Kangaroo Road. I don't have anything prepared. I didn't think I was going to speak this evening, but I'm actually only speaking because I haven't heard anyone else get up yet. And I'm actually surprised. I noticed that there's an application from the Chosen Preschool to be part of the old school building. And it sounds like if they don't get approval for that, we don't have Chosen Preschool anymore. My son went to this preschool. I have no doubt that there's a ton of people in this room whose kids went to that preschool. It would be a shocking loss to this community if we didn't have the preschool, even for a year. To imagine that people would take their young ones far out into Langford or Sioux or wherever, or not have that community school, to me would be just a devastating loss. So I know that there's still talk about budgets and this and that. I really hope that you guys can see your way to making sure that this preschool gets in and that we can give them the approval right away, because it sounds like they need it immediately to be able to move forward. So just a word, please make sure that that preschool stays within our community. And I'm also all for the Weird Beach Trail.
Thank you, Lisa Gee of Kangaroo Road. Thank you.
Good evening, Barb Sawatsky, Kavir Road, 53-year Metchosin resident. I wasn't going to come tonight when I read the length of the agenda until I hit on agenda item 8C, replacement fire hall opportunity, which I found quite shocking. The agenda proposal seems to be out of place, and I don't recall the rebuild of the fire hall being passed by this council. As pointed out by a number of residents and with increasing regularity, you were elected to protect our community from development. And yet, unbelievably, this wide-reaching proposal is on tonight's agenda, which if you approve and send to staff, you will be promoting a multi-residential building. This is called development. In spite of soaring taxes for the second year in a row, you do not seem to even have the financial ability to fill potholes on municipal property. So why do you believe you can afford to be a landlord with all its attendant problems? Every year I watch the request list from the fire hall grow larger and longer, and the funds invariably seem to come through. Presently, there is a budget request for a full-time assistant because of a heavy workload, yet miscellaneous jobs such as overseeing the renovations of the school and scheduling rentals for the gym are taken on. What is the mandate of our volunteer fire department? Is it to oversee renovations, manage the scheduling of gyms, and become the hub for societal problems, or should it be to fight fires and train future firefighters? As for the very few accommodation rentals in Metchosin, perhaps driving in from Royal Bay or adjacent municipalities is a trade-off for training and gear, as I suspect most young volunteers are hoping to eventually become paid full-time firefighters. You have been in office for 16 months. It is past time to be responsible decision makers, separating the needs from the wants. I request strongly that you focus on what you were elected to do. Run this municipality in a fiscally responsible manner.
Dan Cote, Leafield Road. I wanted to speak on the matter of a variance at 1050 Matheson Lake Road for a detached secondary suite. I'm not going to speak in favor or against, but I'm not a neighbor. We thought about this idea for our place, and in many situations it just doesn't work well for us, depending on how you work around the old house, the driveway, the septic field. It just doesn't work well. So when the house was moved out there in 1980-81, they weren't looking at where to put a house that would accommodate a secondary suite. Those rules weren't even a glimmer on the horizon yet. So there's going to be a lot of us, and possibly this person here, in a situation where they're going to make do with the situation they have. We have a whole bunch of rules that fit to this opportunity of a secondary suite, but I would hope that you would consider the best place for this house to sit, this detached suite to sit, rather than the one that fits all the rules and makes it the worst place. we, as I said, we looked at it for our place, we've looked at it at other people's homes, and it doesn't work very well. Spending a couple $100,000 to make it work versus relaxing a rule here or relaxing a rule there. I think if we focus on using the best spot for the house to go, the new detached suite, rather than the one that fits the rules the best. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not a neighbor. It doesn't affect my house.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Joe Kalenda, and I live in Saanich, and I'm speaking to the development variance permit application at 1050 Matheson Lake Road, which I'm the agent for. And just a question, did you receive the email from Paul Shazatz today? Okay, great, that's terrific. All right, then I just want to make some comments from the January 8th council meeting. At that time, Councillor Shariap wondered if the detached secondary suite could be built beside the main house and adjacent to easterly common property line. And I explained at that time that it would be too close to the next door neighbor, impact his privacy and enjoyment, and that there's probably not enough distance between the driveway and the easterly property line to fit and meet all of the regulations. And I was pretty happy with my response. But last weekend, I decided to put pen and scale to paper to see if I could actually fit that house in that easterly side lot. And so if I use the upland zone 3-meter side yard regulation, which applies only to the principal residence, by the way, and place the house accordingly close to the easterly property line, I end up with a 16.5-meter separation distance between the new house and the existing house. And in that case, I would need 2 variances. One for the 15-meter separation distance, because all of a sudden I'm at 16.5 meters, and the second to the detached suite minimum side yard regulation of 15 meters. So were I to put that there, I would need 2 variances. So I tried it the other way. I used the detached suite minimum side yard regulation of 15 meters. I placed the house at the 15-meter side yard point against the easterly side yard. And then the other end of the house ends up being built more or less on the driveway. And there's a 4.5-meter separation between the new house and the existing house. And clearly that's not going to work for Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher. It's just too close for their privacy. All of that to say that we are placing the detached secondary suite exactly where it should be, on the most practical site on the lot, all things considered. Now, on January the 8th, Council also wondered about Bill 44 as it might apply to the chosen. So I did attend the webinars on January the 10th, which reviewed the small-scale multi-unit housing policy, and on January 16th, which reviewed secondary suites. And I reviewed the provincial policy manual and site standards. And in a nutshell, at least as I interpret it, Council must permit 2 house units on most residential lots as a minimum. And Council may continue to grant variances to permit the second house unit to be built. And finally, Councillor Shucken expressed concerns about precedent-setting decisions, which I think is a legitimate concern. In fact, any decision the council makes is discrete, separate, and applies only to the matter being decided. And every application, whether it's for a DBP or a zone change or whatever, is decided on its own merits in consideration of your OCP and now in consideration of Bill 44. And every application is decided de novo, which is to say precedents should not be used to either support or deny the application. Accordingly, the development variance can be approved without any fear of limiting or prejudicing any decisions in the future. So this is my 3rd night in front of you. The bases are loaded. I hope I hit a home run tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I hope I'm going to make it through here. It's allergies, I assure you. Wendy Mitchell, 580 Woody Beach Road. I was really shocked when I saw this fire hall proposal on the agenda because, well, first of all, I did start laughing because it is kind of laughable in the chosen to think that we could have high rises with all these different people and that sort of thing. Anyway, there's been no steering committee report. I thought there was a fire hall steering committee. Have we had a report from them? And if we haven't had a report from them, why is the fire chief proposing social development and development? It's ridiculous. It's funny. It's not due process. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Good evening, Bonnie Booper, Neil Road. I sent a letter to you over the weekend and I'm hoping for some answers in the next little while. All of course related to the budget and our upcoming tax increase. I have read tonight's agenda package regarding the fire hall feasibility study and the request for the full-time QP admin position. It brought to mind, we have a Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. We have an Environmental Committee. How come we don't have an advisory committee for the fire hall business? It's another major portfolio, so I just thought it would maybe be a good idea. It might be a way of alleviating some of the fire chief's workload. And it could assist with the feasibility study. Maybe some of the fire chief's work could be reallocated rather than having to hire this KP position. And just a thought in addition to my letter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Epstein, Chosen Road. It's just really a question. There's a bunch of rumors floating around about Siouxland, and I'm hoping that people can tell us about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Jennifer Burgess, Duke Road. I just want to add to this wonderful person in the back row that yes, the preschool is in a very critical state, and I'm surprised no one's here actually presenting also the attached list of endorsements that the preschool went out of their way to build in order to support the concept of going into a schoolhouse building. So I'm also speaking as a board member of the seniors, that the seniors 100% endorse the thought that we would have little ones with our older ones and what they could do as intergenerational activities. So I very strongly support anything that we can do, any advice that we can come up with to assist our preschool, because they're on lean days. I've done that a long time ago in the Kootenays preschool as well, co-op preschool. Other than that, I have two other quick items, but I can probably re-emphasize them on Thursday at the special budget meeting. They do relate to funding. They relate to two items of funding from the provincial government. One of them is what's called $172,854 from the BC government for housing initiatives. Now, I have heard that this fund may not be used in that category and may instead be allocated to planning wages increases or planning legal. And I would encourage you to allocate the funds in the criteria that they have been provided. I think it's moot for us also in the future if we happen to get funds from another level of government, that we can demonstrate that we've used them in the way that they were intended to be used. And of course, the second item is the marvelous total of $2,438,000 in what is called a Growing Communities Fund. And if no one in the audience has read the list, there's a list of what reserve fund can only be used for. And I just want to say that part of that also suggests the local portion of affordable, attainable housing developments. And I think looking at both of these funds, we are now in a process in this community of thinking about the needs of residents who are perhaps not well housed, perhaps need different housing, agricultural housing, other levels of housing that I think we've now been given 2 substantial provincial government funds that could be allocated to that kind of investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council. Oh, one more.
Mayor and Council, thank you for letting me speak. Adrian Hamm, 5283 William Head Road. I'm the owner of one of the 2 affected properties straddling the easement where the South Weirs Beach Trail lies. I've emailed and spoken firstly with Mayor Rands and Council related to issues the trail since 2020 when COVID and other reasons resulted in massive increase in access to the trail by cars and predominantly by visitors from outside of Chosen. I know Mayor Rands' position was just to close the trail altogether. When the trail was still open, our family suffered. During weekends, our driveway was at times used for turnaround, risking my young son. We and our neighbors witnessed frequent near misses between vehicles, sometimes hourly. Mayor Therese, I know you had a near miss with me as a bus. Buses and parking beachgoers, and everyone was forced to walk on the road through a set of compound curves to the cars. These issues were well documented by our family with many photos shared with Council and Chief Dunlop. The recent argument that parking is no longer an issue at the trailhead is comical, as the relief only occurred once the trail was closed by Council following their own due diligence and consideration of the risks inherent. Chief Dunlop and I have kept in touch by text, and she's been pivotal in helping the parking issues, especially with the hordes also parking on Sandgate. When Sandgate painted the yellow line on one side of the road, improving their safety for fire truck access, it actually boosted the number of people parking in front of our house and using our driveway. I know Mayor Rands had proposed using the frontages of people's properties on Sandgate to increase available parking, which would have been much to the chagrin of my neighbors along Sandgate. What many people do not realize is in the current form, the trail is actually in a state of encroachment on my property, and the prior maintenance by neighbors has resulted in erosion, putting the stability of the slope and the adjacent property mine at risk. I've heard arguments about tsunami safety issues from the beach for safety egress. I've shared the 2013 CRD Commission Tsunami Run-Up report to Mayor and Council Shukin. From a 9.0 Cascadia event, the model shows a maximum 2.3 meter water level increase within about 70-minute arrival time. The argument that this trail needs to be open to reduce the risk from a tsunami is moot, as there are multiple private access points without impediment, and people just use them as they do, as my neighbors do, the public, and even the thieves who have frequented my property since moving here since 2017. If you're on the beach at a 9.0 Richter scale event, it remains unclear how you do not understand subsequent risks, or an hour later what might be coming. While I feel for the people who used to access the beach through this trail, consideration needs to also be made to the encroachment of my property, reducing our current co-liability. The integrity of the slope and the trees holding together, the erosion and the resulting instability of my adjacent property, and the results of letting people park on the shoulders through these compound corners along William Head, and it forces my family, my neighbors, and the beachgoers who are accessing my vehicle to walk unsafely along the road, where no one does 30 kilometers an hour either way, buses included, through multiple blind corners. Any basic defensible risk assessment will show us to be untenable. Now, as a taxpayer and a professional engineer, I've read both reports authored by the chosen engineer, and I note they're dated 13 months apart, October 22nd, November 23rd. Oh, there is no breakdown of materials, equipment, or labor. No cost estimate is presented, as is typical for engineering estimates. Nor is there a budget for professional fees or permitting, and no proposed contingency. The biggest red flag I see with this set of reports is lack of cost escalation from inflation over this period. And now we're into another calendar year, and yet further cost escalation is completely realistic. So I am worried that the council and public are making decisions without pertinent information and appropriate budgets in hand, and it remains unclear if the other issues and risks will be addressed and budgeted for at the same time, all while our property taxes are boosting. Well, I'm actually an advocate of the trail being open, and always have been, but along the lines of what it always was, a small, steep local path that few knew about and was used predominantly by my neighbors and the community members walking to and from the trail. Appropriate signage at the top and bottom of the natural trail will address the chosen's liability. I've been somewhat surprised.
You got 15 seconds.
Somewhat surprised that the elements have prevailed and little action is being made. If encroachment, erosion, and resulting nuisance and safety issues resulting from the open trail are not ameliorated, with the key issue being parking, please understand when I further escalate my position for remedy.
Chris,
I
since you've
need
spoken,
1 minute.
since you've spoken before, could you let other people go
Yes,
first,
I
please?
thought we were there, sorry.
Good evening, Mike Cornick, Rocky Point Road, and I chair the Fire Hall Steering Committee. I just wanted to talk to the agenda item 8C and clarify a few what I think are misunderstandings for people that may not have the background in what's been happening. The RFP was approved budget for the feasibility study, Class A estimate, and conceptual drawings was approved by council and was in the process of moving forward, but there is a secondary option for funding that could happen through multiple different societies that could fund if we were to get a MOU letter that would allow us to understand what these fundings are. It doesn't necessarily mean, high density, high rises, something like that, but there is many different options that we can't even understand what they are without looking at them, getting an MOU from council. So this doesn't tie our hands on anything at this point. It is just a matter of understanding what the different funding options could be, and then we could represent that if that was an interest of anybody. If not, we could just move forward with the RFP as it stands now and get the feasibility study for the fire hall specific and leave the rest off the table and do that separately or not at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Did anybody else wish to speak this evening? Okay, Chris, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Chris Moore, William Road. I'd like to predicate what I'm, make the statement that these are my words only. And this is in no way on behalf of the APRO. And as some of you sitting at the table know, at least I believe you do, ever since tonight's agenda hit the street on Friday afternoon, my phone has rung off the wall nonstop for the last 3 days. The traffic got so heavy that I disconnected it for about 4 or 5 hours on Saturday night. And as of this morning, my email shut down due to an overload. As I'm sure you can guess, all this brouhaha is directly related to agenda item 8C, and that's the proposal related to our fire hall and the inferred vision for same.
You got 15 seconds.
I'm sorry?
You got 15 seconds.
I would like 30. Is that possible? There is no other window for this.
Right.
Anyway, in all, I heard directly from 62 households, and that's not counting spouses, of whom 61, and I will quote, were outraged about what they had read. And if you're wondering, only about half of these households are in fact APRM members. Any way you want to cut it, it is a broad-based response from our community at large, and I suggest that this circumstance is both unfortunate and highly divisive. Your public has been expecting that priority one for our problematic fire hall, that is, would be addressing the long-standing repairs that clearly need to be done, and that this would not come back in such a, the proposal in such an expanded and unacceptable way. To quote one caller, the only thing missing in this narrative is where is the detox clinic going to go? Please put this current version and current approach to bed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
1 minute.
1 minute? That's all
And
it's gonna be.
that will be the last.
Just
of
to
the-
redress what the fellow was saying about the access to the beach. In '95, Don Knowles just dug steps out of the dirt. It's always been a natural trail there. Dug steps out of the dirt and reinforced it with 2x material and rebar and built some handrails. And that's all we really need. That's all we're really just asking for, right? It doesn't need the big stairs, and I know what he said, but we don't really need that. We just want an access open to the beach to get down there.
Okay.
That's all we really need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Sherry Rourke, 5600 Rocky Point Road. I just wanted to say I was able to attend the Fire Hall Steering Committee when the proposal came up involving this MOU. And in reading the report that was attached to tonight's agenda, I think there's a big piece missing about the MOU, and that the whole process was in looking at options available to the district that worked with community partners who would pay for the feasibility studies and just look at options available. It's not the district committing to anything, but you know, in participating or going through that process, it is a significant tax savings to the district, especially in a tax year that we're looking at huge increases. And it allows this district to sort of be, you know, one of the first to look at options in how do we fund an expensive fire hall with a limited amount of taxpayers and not have a significant tax increase to taxpayers. So while I understand people might be upset about one proposal that came forward, there are so many options at what that housing could look like. You know, the most important part of it was to provide housing to emergency responders close to home, which is a requirement. And another big piece that sort of isn't mentioned in this is what that means to residents that live in the Chosen. If we meet targets on how many firefighters are on site, we all see significant decreases in our household insurance. So there's a lot of other things that are implicit in your consideration of the MOU. And I just think there's no harm in having the feasibility study done to see what the consultant comes back to say what the options are. There's no commitment, and then it allows the community to understand better what you guys are trying to achieve through that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll close public participation. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your concerns. We turn now to page 3 of your agenda package. We have adoption of the council meeting minutes of January 22nd.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Schiffman, seconded by Councillor Epps. All in favor? Go ahead. Just a sec. Councillor Gray?
Which item are we looking at? Excuse me.
Sorry, page 3. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Jay?
Carried.
These are
Any
all my
special?
that's my votes and my signatures.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Good to see you. That's a petition that you collected. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. Gotcha. Thank you.
And on page 13 of your council agenda, special council meeting of January 29th.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Councillor
Second.
Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we've got receipt of minutes. This is Councillor Donaldson, the Special Finance Committee meeting of January 25th on page 17.
Thank you. I move to receive the Special Finance Committee meeting of January 25th.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, with that, we have a mayor's report. This is some release of closed meeting. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. We have the release of the closed meeting resolution, February 5th, 2024. This is regarding the District of Metchosin Chief Financial Officer. Sue-Lynn Tarnowski and the district have agreed that Ms. Tarnowski will leave to pursue other ventures. Ms. Tarnowski appreciated her time at the district, and the district wishes her well with her future endeavors. The appointment of the municipal officer and employees. Council has appointed Bob Payette as Chief Financial Officer, Corporate Officer, and Approving Officer for the District of Metchosin. Moving on to my mayor's update of February 5th on page 21 of your agenda. So once again, I'm walking in the coldest night of the year. I don't think it'll be the coldest night. I think we've already had one, but I'll be walking to support the Souk Shelter Society. All of council managed to come out last year with the fire chief. I encourage you to come again. There is a secure box if you'd like to make any donations. It'd be really great to see you there to support Souk Shelter and Souk Council. And the CRD Stormwater Management Group offered a workshop that Councillor Donaldson and Nepp and I attended. It was a really great workshop, and I encourage you to attend in other years when it's offered. We learned about how to slow sink, spread, and store rainwater on rural landscapes. We talked about climate change projections within the capital region, how to balance the drainage and retention goals, and using GIS tools for planning. So with that, I really encourage you to attend the workshop. This wasn't only open to council members, it was open to the public, and it's offered once a year. I just thought I'd give you a little bit of information that I can of the Capital Regional District South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee, formerly the TTAC Committee. This committee is a joint committee of the CRD and 12 of its 13 municipalities that could be affected by treaty negotiations with the Souk Nation, Beecher Bay, and the Songhees First Nations, and reconciliation negotiations with the Esquimalt and the Wasanich First Nations. I am your council liaison for this South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee, also known as CIRAC. The Tumuk Treaty Advisory Committee was formed in 2006 per the Memorandum of Agreement between the Union of BC municipalities and the provincial government that ensures local governments have a recognized role in treaty negotiations with First Nations pursuing modern-day treaties. The Tumuk Treaty Advisory Committee was reformed as the South Island Reconciliation Advisory Committee in 2022 in recognition of the need for local governments to be involved in both ongoing Tumuk Treaty negotiations and reconciliation negotiations being undertaken by the province of BC and Canada with the Esquimalt and the Wasanich First Nation. The Mayor of Souk, Maya Tate, is the chair of this committee, and Councillor Killian Green from Oak Bay has recently been appointed as the vice chair. Per the memorandum of agreement between the province and the Union of BC Municipalities, all activities of CIRAC with respect to the specific treaty and reconciliation negotiations are held in camera under the prescription of the confidentiality in the memorandum signed by the province and the UBC. So this is why I haven't reported on the activities of this group, but I just wanted to let you know what the group was all about, and we do meet about every 2 months. As my role as vice chair of the CRD board, I've been invited along with the CRD board chair, the CAO, and many members of the executive team out to different First Nations communities. The CRD is interested in establishing memorandums of understanding and a path forward in relationship building with each of the First Nations. To date, I have been invited and I've gone out to the First Nations for these discussions with the Sault First Nation, the Pakwachan First Nation, and most recently at the Pachidat First Nations in Port Renfrew. These are very respectful and meaningful meetings. I think you saw in the news that recently we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Pachidat First Nation. Discussions are led by the chief and council and include what is most important to them. So whatever item they have on their agenda and what is of particular importance to their community, that's what we go with. And such things as land, parks, water, or sewage. So with that concludes my, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mary Lil. I appreciate hearing about those events and opportunities. I'm wondering, with your role at the CRD, there's a lot of news right now about the contaminated biosolids and also about the housing plans. And both of these are, I guess the first one is a difficult management. I recognize that. The second one, what I've been reading about in the paper is the debt load that the CRD would take on. And I'm wondering if you might at a future meeting give us a thumbnail sketch of what's going on, recognizing your vote at the table is your vote at the table, but I think it would be helpful to learn just a bit more about those. I'll report back on the CRD water issue, which is the other big one. So there's 3 big ones right now before the CRD, and I've introduced the topic in the Environment Committee. I'll carry on explaining what goes on. There's some meetings coming up there to talk about the master water plan, and then development cost charges following.
Yeah, okay, I will bring back a report on both of those 2 issues, the biosolids issue. This is a really contentious issue at the board, and it has been for a while. Previous boards have signed an understanding that the CRD would not spread biosolids, the biosolid particles onto land for either agriculture or reclamation of industrial sites or for silviculture. Recently, the provincial government has told the CRD that they must consider what I've just said, spreading it on land as one of the options, which goes against what the CRD board has approved previously. So you can imagine the discussion with 24 members around the table about the use of biosolids. So I'll come back with more of it is contentious and I don't have an answer for you. I have done extensive reading, looking to see what they do in Europe, and they do use biosolids in some European nations. Anyways, I'll come back with a report. And then the second note was the proposal to borrow $88 million for land acquisition for housing. So to be clear, in order for a municipality such as Metchosin or even the CRD to go through with borrowing, they must either go through what they call the alternative approval process or a referendum. an alternate approval process is preferred because a referendum costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. So usually the AAP or alternative approval process is started. So I think there was some difficulties with early messaging, but as you've seen both at the federal level and at the province, housing is definitely an issue, and the CRD is trying to address that. In order to address housing, they need to acquire land. In order to acquire land, they need money. So that's just a brief update on those, and I'll bring a more comprehensive report.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, with that ends my mayor's update. Turning to page 23 of your council agenda, reports for action. We have a report to council from Catherine Letition, for our planner, to Mr. Bob Payette. This is regarding the development variance permit for 1050 Matheson Lake Road. Now, I'm just wondering, Councillor Shukin, did you want to make some comments on this, or shall I turn it to Mr. Payette to start with?
If Mr. Payette is okay to open things up, that'd be great.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Mayor, and through to council. The last council meeting, I believe council had requested some additional information, so maybe I'll start with that, and if there's any questions. Staff are still unraveling or peeling off the layers of the housing legislation and the guidelines booklet that they sent out. It's quite a bit to digest. But here we have a little bit more information on accessory dwelling units, that the legislation requires that attached and or detached suites, similar to what the gentleman said earlier here today, on all residential zone properties is mandated in the legislation. In Metchosin, attached suites are permitted in all residential zones already, and regardless of lot size. And detached suites are permitted on all residential zones that are 1.98 acres or 0.8 hectares or more. So we will have a little bit of work to do on that item. Second is the discretionary items in our various zoning bylaws, so setbacks, restricted heights, floor areas, etc. So these are still permitted in the legislation. Reviewing the suite regulations is recommended by staff to council to ensure that they reflect council's current priorities in delivering this type of housing. This is not a requirement of the legislation, nor should it be part of the application consideration. However, council will, this is a recommendation, will need to do some updating on our zoning bylaws due to this new legislation. Our deadline is 2025, so as I had indicated previously, there is time. There's no panic. These updates could be included in a 2025 update, or if council wanted to do it quicker, we could start the process sooner in the zoning bylaw reviews. Yeah, so that's it on the questions.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. This issue is back before us. I think it's timely, and I have to confess that over the last few weeks I have done some rethinking about this. My initial hesitation, though, when we were talking about this in January, was that we had not yet seen the policy documents, that they had been circulated in December but hadn't really percolated down. So I think it was even just that day that we began to sort of grapple with them. As Mr. Payette says, in terms of secondary suites, we can set the rules, still do that. That is true. What is also true is that local governments are very much going to be under careful eye of the provincial government in terms of what they do with housing. And And with that, and we are going to have to be rethinking how we do housing. We do, as Mr. Pyatt was saying, there does have to be a housing needs report that is due in the coming few months. My concern, though, overall, is if we are seen to be too onerous and too restrictive, and there were some interesting comments earlier today that if we're trying to cram too much to fit trying to cram things into fitting the rules without due consideration of where the best place is, and I want to, Mr. Cote mentioned that, I think it's very apt. I think we're going to be in trouble there, and I think we will, if we don't work to offer and open up some further housing opportunities in the chosen, I think we're going to hear from the provincial government, and we have control over what we do now, and I worry that may change if we are, again, too onerous and too restrictive. So with that, I am prepared to consider and even support a detached secondary suite application, and especially ones that are conducive and respectful to neighbors, have limited environmental impacts, and are built with a low footprint, such as the one we're hearing now. And again, this did come back to us with that footprint shrunk up even more. So I am willing to support this development variance permit. So one thing I have to say that I believe is very true is the applicants, clearly when you visit their property, they are responsible homeowners, and there's nothing to doubt that this particular property will be built to the same standards and same responsibility. So if I can make the motion, but I'd also be interested in hearing other comments to this. So.
Just hold off on your motion, let's hear
Sure.
from everybody. Okay, who wants to speak next? Go ahead, Councillor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've also done a little bit more homework. Once upon a time, and I can't remember the year, but quite a few years ago, before I moved here, so more than 35 years ago, there was a bylaw that we had out of the Municipal Act called 996. And it's been repealed, and what it was is you needed a minimum of 2 acres to be able to do this, and this was to subdivide off 3/4 of an acre to a family member. And so quite a lot of that took place throughout the different municipalities in the province. My neighborhood alone has 4 of them, and so what ended up happening is people would subdivide these off for their family, and then they turn around and would flip them. So that was the thin edge of the wedge to subdivision, which was the big scare of our community when our OCP was being put together. So that was repealed, and another one has come in, which exists today. It's a different bylaw that prevents that sort of thing happening, but there is an option to subdivide off for family with different restrictions, clearly. And then in the 2010-2012, Metchosin had an interest to put together a detached secondary suite committee of 12 people. That was a combination of 4 that were against, 4 that were neutral, 4 that were in favor. And I'm not saying that any of those were radical, but a great team of brainstorming and lots of different scenarios that they went through, very in-depth conversations and discussions and all sorts of stuff brought to the table, which brought us to where we are today with the setbacks. So the reason we have the 15-meter maximum, which is the 50 feet from the primary residence, was possibly in response to that 996 bylaw of the past, so that there wouldn't be future subdivision. So this one that is before us today is 150% further away. It is 126 feet as opposed to the 50 feet. And it is well situated. There's care and attention taken to it being close to the septic field. Easily could put up more screening in the way of trees or hedges if there was a need for more privacy. A future council could easily change the zonings to be able to subdivide, and it would be a perfect spot for that. I will not support this based on how our OCP is written currently. I will honor what is in our OCP, and I will honor the detached secondary suite setbacks as they're written.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Ebb.
Well, I've thought about it a lot as well, and I am going to support it. I think I appreciate Mr. Kalenda's explanation of why the suite couldn't be put where I thought it might fit. It certainly is in the best location on the property, given the trees and the lack of any much environmental effect it would have to build it where it's going to be. And I agree with Councillor Shukin that I think the province is going to keep on with what they're doing as far as housing rules and relaxing other rules that councils have made just seem to be going by the wayside, and I think some of ours probably will be as well. And so I think this is I think their plan is a good one, and I will support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gary, did you want to speak to this?
Sure. Everyone's heard me previously speak in favor of this variance. It seems to me that our bylaw and our OCP are written to allow variances. We heard previously, and we have correspondence here from a few individuals in the community who are raising questions about why you'd permit a variance here. My view is that the intention of the bylaw was to restrict future opportunity for subdivision. I think this property does that, just the nature of the location of the suite compared to the house. They're pretty sure it's going to remain with a common driveway because of the switchback that's there now, the driveway that's coming in. I think the suite is situated properly to manage nuisance from neighbors, and so for those measures, I think we're in good shape. I'm not at all concerned at the moment about the province's initiatives on housing. I think that's a canard. We're outside the urban containment boundary, which is referenced in their documents, saying we're going to leave the people outside the urban containment boundary as they are. The pressure that we heard from our CAO was simply that we will be required to permit detached suites in all residential zones. I think that rather than predicting and fearing what might come from the province, I'm prepared to stand on our principles here and do what we think is right for our community in accordance with our OCP and carry forward. And then when the province wants to do something, they'll certainly let us know, but I don't expect them to be vengeful or attacking us on another front particularly. So I'm speaking in support. But for the reasons I've stated, in a different situation where the variance request did not meet the intention of the bylaw, then I would vote against it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will vote in support of this application for a number of reasons. A number of them have been already pointed out. We are under scrutiny from the provincial government regarding housing. We have stated in a letter that we will do everything we can within the confines of our OCP and recognizing that we are outside of the urban containment boundary. We have looked at the site, the site to the left or to the, what would that be, the east of the driveway is not a favorable location. Trees, arbutus trees have to come down, as well as it would interfere with the privacy of the neighbor, and I don't think that would be very fair. Putting the suite up above the garden would be not a nice place for a suite way up on the rock there. And it would provide almost easier to subdivide because it could probably be easily subdivided into 4 and 6, that 10-acre lot. It does where the proposed location, I think that's the area of least environmental impacts. There's no trees to be cut. You can't put a suite on top of the septic field. It's practical. I think it's within our guidelines. And for those reasons, I will support this application. With that, I'm going to punt it back to Councillor Shukin to make a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I would move that we issue development variance permit 2305.
This is moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Epp. More discussion? No? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Thank you for that. Thanks for the respectful discussion. Turning to page 43, this is the establishment of the new government climate action plan. We've got a number of recommendations here from our former CFO. You've read the report here. The options are that we pass the resolution or authorize the transfer of the fund balance. So this is moving funds around given our surplus policy. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Go ahead.
I'm happy to move the motion that council pass a resolution to establish a non-statutory local government climate action plan reserve.
And
the council authorize the transfer of the fund balance from the carbon neutral reserve to the local government climate action plan reserve. And that policy F100.52 reserves and surplus policy be approved as amended to include the local government climate action plan reserve.
I'll second that.
okay. This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Schuppen. Discussion? Nope. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we've heard a lot about this item so far. This is the replacement fire hall opportunity, and I'll speak to this item. This is just an option. It in no way ties our hands. What we're looking for is different opportunities, different options for not only the feasibility study, but for rebuilding the fire hall. We have about 2 million, Councillor Donaldson, in the fire hall replacement fund, 2.4 million, which will not be sufficient. It'll probably be around 10 to 12 million and perhaps more. And so where are we going to get those funds except for taxes? And as you can see at every finance meeting, every time we have something that is added to the budget, taxes increase, and then there's an outcry. So this report that was prepared by the fire chief is to look just at our options. What are our funding opportunities? What are our funding options? And I think it's incumbent upon us, and I think we should do our due diligence and find out all those options. There's really not a lot of staff time that will be involved. It's really just to pursue our different options. We do have housing needs in our community for volunteer firefighters, agricultural workers. This application mentions women and children that are fleeing violence. We're not talking skyscrapers, we're talking about a few suites. I think we should flesh that out. I mean, how can we say no to something we don't know a lot about? And again, we have signaled to the province that we are committed to doing everything we can within the confines of our OCP and with our vision for rural Metchosin. I can't see that this goes against it, and I would like us to do our due diligence and permit this to go forward with this memorandum of understanding, which in no way is legally binding. Okay, comments from other council members. Councillor Schuppen, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mayor Little. It was my understanding when we were discussing the feasibility study previously that we would consider housing options, and there is much to consider in terms of, how many. I'm intrigued by the idea of, going back to my 8-year-old self of living right above a fire hall, but how many homes can you actually do? What are the funding sources? I think that's really critical. I understand that there is concern amongst some in the community. If that concern is about an interest in Metchosin funding specifically homes, I would be with them in terms of that concern. I don't think that's our role right now. However, if there are funding opportunities that could provide the capital cost for all of that build, that is something I think we need to explore. We've talked a lot about homes for firefighters, as you mentioned, and possibly homes for agriculture workers. I think the chief has identified some other high-risk groups that could benefit this as well. So I'm in support of this very much. What I'm unclear about, though, is I don't fully understand the role of the society in what goes ahead now and where they fit into the feasibility study. So I'm almost wondering if, I wouldn't mind if we could discuss this one more day and get some further background from the chief or more detail in the report. So again, supportive. I'm not sure I have all of the information to make a decision tonight, so thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'll move receipt of the document, and if I get a second, I'll explain.
I'll second.
Thank you. This was a surprise for me to be on the agenda, frankly. I think that I appreciate the brainstorming and blue sky work that people are doing, trying to, what ideas would we have. I think that's good to promote amongst our staff and amongst ourselves. But I think we're putting it on council's agenda tonight. It's the wrong point in our process, as I understand the documents. So I'm with you, Councillor Shukin, in terms of getting back to staff to say, well, what exactly is the idea? A little bit of clarity would help go a long way. So if I think about our process, we need to reach a decision at some point about whether or not we're going to build a fire hall. Are we going to do that or not? We inherited the fire hall steering committee from previous council. We agreed to finance a feasibility study for $40,000. It was in our one-time funding last year. We got a grant for $10,000 to help us with that. We agreed also to consider housing as an option for firefighters in the feasibility study if we got additional government grant to support that, including that in the study. What I would see in the feasibility study would be the rationale, the pros and cons of a new fire hall, single use, multiple use, the cost, the size. I'd like us to get the RFP out there and get some feedback on it. Now we're looking at what appears to me to be a contract, essentially, between ourselves and the Firefighters Association. And I might ask, well, who exactly are they? I don't mean that in a negative term, but rather, are any staff members of that association? Who are we contracting with exactly here in an MOU? And I don't understand that fully. And when you read it, it's the design and plan, the building and the operations for both the fire hall and housing. So while I appreciate what a couple of residents have said here, I think the chair of the committee and another resident, it's not laid out well enough here to understand for me to figure out to say, yeah, let's do this. So I'd like to review the terms of reference if needed on the fire hall committee. We talked about that before. I don't think we completed that. Decide, whether our staff or committee members are the appropriate people to look at an RFP or to put it together. Secure the grants where we can, the one for the housing part particularly, and to get some clarity around the constitution and purpose of the Fire Hall Society, if they're going to be partners in this, and move forward from there. That's a lot of stuff there, but what I guess I'm saying is I'm not satisfied we have the information on the table tonight to decide to sign an MOU.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I am one of the liaisons that sits on the committee. I just want to give a little bit of a background of the Fire Hall Steering Committee, which was approved in January 24th of January 2022. And the purpose of the steering committee is that they will advise council on various issues as the project moves through the concept, needs, design, and building stages. And the function and the roles, the committee will meet monthly and report its progress and recommendations to council through the finance and, at that time, the environment committee. To date, there have been 5 meetings since 2022. There has been February 8th, 2022, March 1st, 2022, March 22nd, 2022, January 18th, 2023, which is when I first started with them, and October 3rd, 2023, which is when the housing presentation was made available to us, and October 16th, that presentation came to council. There has been a great deal of research done with the committee in very early stages before I arrived at the table. There was, it was determined it was 5,000 square feet. That is what the building is right now. There's an ambition to have all emergency services under one roof. Right now, we're spread out a little bit. So that means that EOC would be under the same roof. It's unclear to me if SAR was considered that because they're a separate entity from the fire department. The other things that have been done to date is there was a RISC geotechnical, so that was to determine there was drilling underneath the building to see what sort of land was underneath there. So it was determined it's solid, there's no water to be concerned, so that would enable us to be able to put something like a basement or a partial basement for storage. ARIC Hazmat was also brought online to check out anything to do with lead, mercury, asbestos, those sorts of things. Skyline Engineering was checking for seismic stability of the building that exists right now. And in 2023 budget, last year, almost to the date, council did approve the $40,000 for the fire hall feasibility study. And then a few months later, the $10,000. So we have approval of $50,000 for a feasibility study. And these meetings are like a year apart almost. It was really gung-ho at the beginning and then sort of fell off the radar for whatever reasons, I'm not sure. So for those three different companies, we're at about $17,000 plus the $50,000, which we've already, well, the $40,000 would have been already taxed. So we're not asking anything more at this point from our taxpayers, but significant funds have already been allocated to what was sold to us as a fire department that needs to be rebuilt at some point in time. Other things that have been considered is, well, clearly we've got the housing is on the forefront. Is it for responders, farmers, that sort of thing? At this point in time, I'm unaware of anybody being homeless in any of the farmers. There's a great network of farmers. The people who do employ the farmers or the farm hands have managed to find places for them to live. I know of one right now that would like to move to Metchosin and is commuting because he does all his work here. So there's active search for that. I don't know of any responders that are without housing at the moment. I do know we have dorms, and I have seen people that have stayed overnight at the fire hall for one reason or another. Generally, fire halls do have dorms, and that is for different situations. It's not a living situation, but we have a kitchen there, we have washrooms, and I believe there's even a shower in our current one. Other concerns that I would have would be dealing with the Tenancy Act, parking, sewage. We are on the land of ALR, so we want to preserve that for future farming. It's been suggested we take it out for this build. If we do put housing in there, we will have to put an elevator in. That's also extremely expensive. There's a lot of things to consider. I would like to see more information, and I would really like to see this actually go back to the steering committee because it seemed to have missed a step, I think, because the steering committee, the last one I was at on October 3rd, was when we saw the presentation, which then came to council. And so when I saw this, like Councillor Gray, it was a bit surprising. I had no idea, and I didn't know how the society got linked in. As far as I understand the society, and I don't have all the details, they're the group of people, they're a registered society, been around probably since the beginning of the fire department, who will put on the pancake breakfast at Christmas time with Santa, Halloween. They, they be for all of that sort of thing. We do funnel money to the society in the I think now it's $16,000 a year. So those are taxpayer dollars that the society is using for those sorts of benefits to our community that they help orchestrate. So being in partnership with the society is unclear to me. I don't know what experience they have with, if it was to go to a tenancy. There's a lot of information that needs to be looked for, I think. Trying to keep an open mind. I went and looked at the links. I think I got through probably 90% of them. The very first one, they've already closed their grant options. I think they'll be opening up again at some point, maybe later this year. Some of them offered low-cost financing for pre-development and pre-construction. So not everything is free. There's a lot of information still that we need. Some of them do the same site visits and stuff, or site studies that we've already done. So that might be a duplication. But there's, I'd like to hear more or understand more of what this arrangement is. And the other thing I was concerned with was the sign-off of having our chief being a director. I didn't know if she was part of the society as a volunteer, or if she's a staff member, or if maybe that role should be the CAO, as the CAO is generally the sign-off on these big things. So I have lots of questions, lots more questions, but I'd like to hear a little bit more from the council.
Okay. Go ahead. Well, I think this, it's unfortunate that we didn't sort of get a little bit of an explanation when this appeared on the agenda, which would have, I think, helped to reduce some of the firestorm that's appeared after. But anyway, I've been on the steering committee from the beginning, and certainly there was pauses between meetings while we were waiting for these various, the 3 different reports that we needed to have before we could move forward with any kind of a plan. And at the last, we moved that we would need, the next step was to get a feasibility study. And so the committee has not met since then, because that was the next step, and we were waiting to get that done, have the RFP put out. Well, it hasn't happened as yet. And then when the idea came around that possibly we could get the study funded, and maybe even the fire hall funded through housing. So it really seemed like it was worth looking into, because the fire hall, to replace it, is going to cost millions of dollars, and probably require a loan, because really $2 million is maybe going to build a foundation. So, we thought it was only responsible to be looking into options, first of all, to try to get the feasibility study funded, if we include the housing component, which council did agree to do. And this is part of it, because this MOU, which is basically just paperwork to show these various different organizations, the whole long list of them, this is a legitimate request, and this is a possibility we're looking into, but it certainly does not mean we're doing it, does not mean we approve it, or anything else. So I think it's just kind of unfortunate the way it came about. So I do, in principle, support it. I think it would be good to get a little more clarity on exactly how it is going to work, just to put people's minds at rest that we're not going to build a high-rise for the whole West Shore. And and we have heard many times about how there's no accommodation for farm workers, And certainly a lot of our firefighters live outside the district and have a distance to come to respond to calls. We do have firefighters that stay on call at night at the fire hall most nights. So, you know, there are people there, but it definitely would make a difference to have them on site. And if we did, it would lower property insurance as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll speak to why the Metchosin Firefighters Association, I think, will get more information from staff. But in order to be eligible for the CMHC housing co-investment funds, which are substantial, you need partnerships within the community. And so rather than going to another society, the likely one was the fire hall or the firefighters society. I think that's the reasons for that, but we can check both with the CAO and the firefighters. And so what I'm hearing from council is some support, some questioning and wanting for more information. I'm never in favor of pushing something through just to get it done without providing an opportunity for council to ask more questions and for us to get more information. The CMHC funding is not open forever, so we have to move on this quickly, but I think we could ask staff to report back to us on some of the questions that were asked. So I would be in favor of doing that, but this in no way, even if we did sign it and move forward, we could get the feasibility paid for. That's $40,000. That's 1 plus or 1.5% tax rate. That we could at least go that far and find out all of our options. So, Councillor Schuker or Councillor Gray, which option did you move?
I moved that we receive the report.
Okay.
And I second.
Okay. So this was moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Schuker.
I actually seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Donaldson.
You did. Pardon.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'd like to propose a motion to send this to staff for some more information so that we can collect some more information regarding this initiative. So it's moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Epp. Questions? Go ahead.
I think we've laid out the questions in our discussion that we can pick up. So I'm fine with that. I'll vote in favor.
Anybody else? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, moving on to correspondence for information. Our first letter is on page 69 of the agenda package from David Bodie of the Metchosin Preschool Society. The preschool is in a bit of a pickle. Currently, they are located at Westmont, but they can't be there for long. They had some negotiations with St. Mary's for using their facilities downstairs, and I don't know what happened, but that arrangement is no longer available. And so Lisa Gee mentioned tonight in public participation, the preschool has been around for a long time. Many of our children have attended there. It's a co-op preschool. It's a great asset to the community, and I would like to see them housed safely as well in the community. The only question that I have now is we need to move on this quickly. But we've got a CAO who's trying to get some idea of the grand scheme of things at the school, what he's going to recommend for the different classrooms, for the governance of it, and I would like to see this sent to the CAO for his deliberations, because we've got other applications, if you like, or other proposals that are coming forward. But I'd like to hear from council what you think about this. Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'd like to support it as well. I remember this first came up last May when you and I were actually touring Westmont, and I learned that the preschool were moving over to Westmont for a duration of time. So I was pleased that they actually had a place to go. Didn't realize that they actually had to move so quickly. They've been struggling for years with putting good money after bad with this building that's been deteriorating quite quickly underneath their feet, literally. My only concern is right now we have a big billboard out the front of Mile Zero that it may be extending their hours, and there's a concern about how that will conflict with the hours of operation with the preschool. So as this is written in what's happening today, it fits. But if the hours of the Mile Zero Brewery change, this could drastically affect the operation of having a school there. Because I believe there are some setbacks to that sort of thing as far as how many meters away schools are from pubs and such. So that would be something I'd like to learn more about, and I don't know if we can move quickly on that because we're waiting to hear from them. We have chosen to allow the liquor order to make the decision outside of our hands.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Shukin.
Thanks, Mary Little. What I understand is that there's a grand plan for the school and the gym being developed or being considered. And I think it's really important that these two things, and I will speak to Mr. Chang's concept of the chosen natural history as well, they be considered, but we need to think about the broader economics of the school as well. And right now, for the operating expenses, I think we're at $178,000 for the school site this year. Mainly, it has gone up, and of course we lost that revenue with the departure of instinct training. So I'm really supportive of preschool. I'd like to see this done quickly, but I think we have to look now at making sure we've got a management sort of strategy for the school site. So I'm not quite, and I think Mr. Payette knows that as well, and I think everyone at the table as well. So.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor.
Yeah, support us supporting the preschool in this way, and that we do have a CAO enter into negotiations with how it might work. I know we do need a long-term plan, but hopefully the preschool can be incorporated in that, because it is the school is there, for the community, and I think this is definitely one part of it that we can support. As far as Mile Zero, in this letter, he said that the daycare licensing authority has been contacted, and there are no objections as far as Mile Zero, as long as their children do not go on Mile Zero's premises. So that should cover that worry. I'm a little concerned about all the areas that they are hoping to use, the grassy area, the fields, and other places. So it's something that just needs to be discussed.
Okay. Councillor Gray, did you wish to speak?
Certainly. I think the biggest issue facing the school right now actually is getting that washroom fixed and getting the commercial places rented or leased. And I hope that that would be the priority for the CAO in terms of contacting our leasing agent and getting this launched. And perhaps that's happened. May I ask through the chair if that's happened already?
Mr. Payette, so regarding the leasing, go ahead.
Yeah, have we contacted our leasing agent, and are we on the move now with getting the commercial place rented?
I can address that, Mayor, through council.
Please.
Councillor Gray. So I did contact the leasing agent, Chris, can't remember his last name.
Chris Core.
Yeah. So we're in correspondence and scheduled to meet tomorrow after tonight's discussion. And also I have a meeting set up Wednesday morning with a representative from the preschool, and we will move that along as quickly and expeditiously as possible. And I believe my only concern would be, potentially the fee, rental fee, and that's maybe something I'll address with council. But other than that, we'll see if we can get it worked out right away. Okay.
Superb. Thank you very much. So as regards the preschool, I'm very supportive of this. I think that we should move ahead with it. Mr. Pat's read my mind. First question, rental fee. What are their long-term expectations around the washroom facilities? Do those need to be changed? Maybe not immediately, but would they be advising us to make changes in future? And is that necessary? I'm not sure. We'd heard from in public participation some time ago that that might be an issue. And so if that could be remedied, it's certainly described here that they're fine with the current arrangements, but if there's a change needed, I'm interested in accommodating the preschool in that way. So if we could think about, Mayor Little, if we could think about our CAO moving forward with this proposal, in other words, laying out what would be the best ideas in terms of fees and leasing to the preschool, but then of course laying out what are the other priorities, what are those other, I'm not certain, what are those other competing priorities, so we can see them as a package and make a decision in relatively quick order. Now, I realize we had a school visioning project and that sort of thing, so there's lots more to talk about here, but we know the situation with the preschool, more than 60 years in the community. I think it would be a good thing for us to bring to the school, and I don't think it rules out other opportunities going forward in terms of the larger vision. But I would like to see action rather than it sitting quietly.
Thank you. So I've also thought about their whether we would just give it to them or whether they would lease. I think a lease would be a better idea. They do charge $390 per month per child for each of their classes. So I worked it out. They could afford at minimum $4,000 a year or $333 a month. For that, I haven't talked to them. I'm just looking at what they're advertising, and so at minimum, I think that they could afford $350 a month for that one classroom and for some outside space. I'm in favor of this, but we don't have to have a 25-year or a 10-year lease. We could have a 1-year lease and see how it works. And this is just one of the very small classrooms that has not been renovated. Actually, the windows have been redone. It's been cleaned up, but not extensively renovated, such as the classrooms that Instinct was renting. And so I don't want to tie the hands of the CAO who's working on this, as you heard from what he's just said, but I would like to support the Metchosin Preschool as a possible tenant in the future. Anybody else? Councillor Gray.
I'm with you. I think we don't know what sort of rents would be possible or the length of a lease, but if Mr. Peck could discuss that and come back with some ideas for us, I'd be open to a range of possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Donaldson, go ahead.
Yeah, the same as what my colleague here is saying about the fees being important. The school right now is not sustainable as we know. It is costing us a lot of money. It's unfortunate we've lost one of our big tenants, and there is a lot of vacant space. We don't have a business plan for the school site, and we haven't had from the start. We've been grappling at whatever sort of comes along, and I'm grateful that we actually, that the chief was able to have an agreement with Instinct coming on board that held us over. They did a lot of work there. Sad that they've moved on, but going forward, we're at another step in this, and we really do need a business plan now. We're at that place where we have to take this more seriously. We have very inexpensive leases and rents to anybody that's in the building right now. So I understand it's for the community, but we also need to not undercut our business community either. So a business plan complete with fees, we need to get that happening too. It's a lot, everything's coming all at once, and I think Mr. Payette's probably feeling the way we did the first year we were here, the first 6 months we were here, but we're in this together. These are our community groups, but we do have to pay for those lights to be on and people to take care of cleaning it and so on and so forth. You know, people aren't going to be knocking down our doors to have car shows every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's offsets to those sorts of things. But yeah, so we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, with that, shall we send it back with our endorsement from the council to Mr. Payette to come back with some ideas regarding lease, time, the amount, areas? Would that be all right with everybody? I see you pondering, Councillor Schumann.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I might defer to Councillor Gray. He seemed like he had an organized thought, which I don't have right now. So.
Well, for me, the word is options. So that if Mr. Pike could look at that, I'm respecting what Councillor Donaldson said, is this is fitting an idea into a larger picture. So it's a bit of work, but I think it behooves us to move in this direction.
Councillor Eck, do you want to propose a motion?
Yeah, I'm going to move that we refer this to the CAO for further information.
For further information and action, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that, thank you.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Schumann.
Yeah, thank you for the motion, Councillor Epp. And to me, you know, there's a basic question on how to move ahead. So Councillor Donaldson talked about a business plan, management strategy was used. So what is it we need? Is it for the classrooms? Is it for the gym fees? We talked about the field. So what does it look like that we need to go ahead with? So even just some basics in terms of how we're going to manage the whole site, or as much as we can without getting too caught up in detail. So yeah, no, I'm happy to support the motion. So, yeah.
Okay, so with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, similarly, we have a proposal from Dr. Chang regarding the chosen natural history site. He's met with a number of us as well as a number of stakeholders. This would fit well in with the site. I'm not sure how much capital they, or how much revenue, not revenue. I'm not sure whether they could meet the lease obligations monetarily. I don't know whether they have any money to put towards that. I don't know if we've explored whether there's other rooms, either at MACA, like the DIY room. Could that not be a multi-purpose room and include some of the natural history items and accommodate some of the people that want to work on this initiative? And I think similarly, we could punt this to our CAO as an option, and come up with options and have discussions with Dr. Chang. Comments? Councillor Gray.
Well, I see this is on our agenda tonight for information, and we have seen it at the council table before, I believe, certainly me asking, perhaps it was the environment committee, I don't recall. So I see this as an idea that whose time may come soon. The preschools that we just discussed is a different order of business because of the problem we have in terms of finding a place to be. So it's an idea going forward. I appreciate the work that's done and getting more information about all the people that Dr. Chang's spoken to. But I think we need to, I'm certainly happy to have Mr. Payette look at it in terms of, well, what rooms are available today at the school? Is there anything available? I did commit to him the other day that I would go through the minutes of the school vision exercise and highlight every idea that there was in there, and I just haven't got to that. But there may be a few other ideas that are still wanting from that we got that particular day, and I didn't want him to not know about those. Turn it around. I want him to know about those. So I see this as great, but I would move receipt of the report.
I'd second.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Schumann. More discussion? Councillor
Yeah, when I met with Dr. Chang, I did suggest to him that once he kind of has a real concrete proposal about how it would all work, as far as oversight and, well, just all the various logistical issues that might come up with his idea, that he'd bring a presentation to a committee meeting, and then council can discuss it at that time and then see where it goes.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Gray.
Just to clarify, if my point of receiving is to receive it, and I just don't know. I think it's worth it if Mr. Pike could just see if there's any rooms available at the school at the same time.
I didn't hear the last part of your sentence.
If we could have Mr. Pett see if there's any other rooms available at the school at this time, that would be helpful.
Okay. So your motion would be to receive information and to ask staff to investigate further accommodating at the school. Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, and like everyone else, I met with Dr. Chang as well, and it's very exciting. He's very excited about this. I'm not sure what the commitment level is with all the different groups that are listed. We did talk about some other areas in the community, one of them being the CRD Nature House, which has been closed since COVID, I think, and approaching them and seeing it.
Is it still there, or did they remove it? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure
That
it's still there.
The little hut that was there, is it still there?
It's been removed.
Has it been
Removed?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, okay. That would have been a great option too. Location's great.
And I think Dr. Chang has contacted them and not received information back on whether they'd like to reposition it. Okay. Okay, with that, no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have some information on page 79. We have a letter from Mr. Paul Hooper that I believe was read out this evening by one of our residents. So this is regarding the Weir Beach Trail, the plans regarding to repair it. Mr. Hooper obviously is in support of repairing the stairs at Weir Beach. Councillor Shukin, do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Little. I have spoken a number of times to Mr. Payette about Weir Beach Stairs.
Okay.
My goal is to have a bit more of a substantive update at the planning meeting next Monday, subject to further discussion with Mr. Payette. I have to say I have heard now from about 15 people in that area who are interested in having the Weir Beach Trail open, and so are we. We passed, and I believe it was unanimous, a budget and a plan to go ahead with the opening, and unfortunately we just didn't get around to doing that work. So I think the aim is to move expeditiously to get it done this year. And one other thing I just wanted to mention, just again, thank you to the residents who came out tonight, and with that I would move receipt.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. More comments? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just want to say how important I think the reopening this trail is, and I got the sense tonight that almost all of the people who spoke were happy with the rustic trail, which we've been talking about. The one thing I found interesting when I spoke to one of the people who spoke tonight was the idea that this trail has been part of a loop. People walk a loop, and it was closed off last council, so people have not been able to get out and do their constitutional the way they normally have. So there's a healthy health issue here too.
Okay, where are we with this one? We're going to move receipt. There definitely is support in the community. I think we've got a petition there with a number of names on it as well. We have, as a council, we've already come forward and said we will commit $15,000. There is the issue of some of the pathway on the neighboring property. We'll have to come to terms with that, but I think that's easily addressed. That person's also an engineer. He's suggested that he could help with the stairs, and we've also got the William Head Work Crew that has said that they are interested in helping with this. So I think it will be a win-win situation. We will have to deal with the parking at some point, probably before summer. I think we'll have to deal with the parking issue there because it's extremely, extremely dangerous. So we may want to do some yellow lines there and have no parking there, which would be consistent with it being a community trail for residents and college students. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to that? If not, motion to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to page 83. Stay with me here, everybody's fading. So on page 83, the question is, do we wish to send a letter of support for legislative reform to Vanessa Craig and copy it to Doug Holmes at the Regional District of Nanaimo?
I move that we send a letter of support.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Okay, discussion. So evidently there was a workshop that was held. Don Midstone, who is our legal advisor as well, spoke to it. He's very passionate about reforming the Local Government Act. It is old and outdated. I am also in favor of sending a letter. I did connect with Dr. Craig, and she said to send a letter to her and copy it to Douglas Holmes. Okay, anybody else wish to speak to this? Okay, I'll call the question to send a letter of support to Dr. Craig. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. On page 121, we have another Okanagan-based water board. We could receive this for information. This is a letter from Sue McCordup from she's the chair of the Okanagan Basin Water Board. She's looking for support and expressing concerns for federal plans to eliminate or reduce funds for the BC Invasive Mussel Defense Program. I know that there is a problem with invasive mussels on Vancouver Island as well. Does council wish to receive this for information or to send a letter of support, or what would you like to do?
So Mayor Little, I found this letter quite compelling in terms of what the problem that they're seeing and watching it advance gradually, and then of course the steps that were taken in, is it Idaho? Yeah, I mean it's absolutely horrific, and clearly there's a problem getting ever closer. I would move that we write a letter of support for this initiative.
Okay.
Or for the support for more funds.
I'll second it.
And this letter of support, would this letter not go to the Prime Minister, the Honourable Diana Loop-Thrill, as well as Stephen Gabol and Dominique LeBlanc as well, rather than to Ms. McCordup?
I think so, and then we copy the author here. So.
Yeah, so this would be a letter to the federal government to express our concern about the invasive mussel. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And need for federal funding.
I'm sorry?
And the need for federal funding.
Yeah. Okay, so did somebody move that? Councillor Fukin moved to send a letter. Councillor Gray will second that. Discussion? Not all in favor? Opposed? Great, thank you. We can use verbiage from their well-written letter in that response. Okay, on page 125, we have been invited to provide input on the proposed conditions of license of the existing marine finfish aquaculture licenses of BC. I was thinking that, this is marine, this is environmental, and should we send this to MIASC for their comment? I think this would be respectful to them. Councillor Gary.
I'd like to move receipt, and then for a seconder, I'll tell you, I've spoken to Gary Fletcher, the chair of MIASC, and he says let's leave this to the people who have the finfish in their jurisdictions. We've got a lot of work that we're working on. I did early on in council, in our tenure, attend webinars on the topic, and I realize it's really a big topic up Island. and I wasn't able to make a contribution that was helpful given the level of debate. There's a very serious discussion going on right now.
Okay.
And it centers on the idea that the federal government made commitments and now seems to be backing away from the commitments. There's a big involvement of First Nations in both sides of the discussion, and it's terribly interesting, but I'm not sure that not having aquaculture here, I think it would be probably best to take the advice of the chair of MEASC and receive a report.
I was just going to second.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin to receive this for information. More comments? Not call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a letter from the District of Highlands to the provincial government to ask the government, they've asked us as council to send a similar letter as we've done before, but this time for consistent funding. As you know, I'm chair of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee. We've been advocating for the mobile youth services team, and we did get in funding for last year. I talked to Minister Grace Lohr and Honourable Minister Mitzi Dean last year, and I said thank you very much for the funding for CRED and for MIST, but I'd like to see continuous funding so we don't have to send you a letter every year. And they said they would put it in their budget. They would consider putting it in their budget. So this is just a letter to prompt them to consider putting it in their budget. So I would like to write a letter similar to what the District of Highlands has done. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Epp. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then we have a letter from Sicamous, the District of Sicamous, regarding support for Bill 34. What do you think to that in terms of shall we receive this for information? Are you in support of this? I'm not sure about this in sending this letter.
Mayor Little, I'd move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Questions? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so then we have on the pinks, we have receipt of you've read the letters from Bev Bacon, Morgan Yates, and Joseph Kalinda regarding 1050 Matheson Lake and the fire hall opportunity. You've read the letters from Bev Bacon, Avril Yoakum, and Barb Sawatsky. That was in 9I and 9J. And we have now new business. So this, if you'll turn to page 15 of the pinks here, this is an RFP for disaster risk reduction climate adaptation proposal. She would like, this is from our fire chief, Stephanie Dunlop. She would like to have council to consider engaging Logic Lead Consulting for the completion of the disaster risk reduction climate action project for a total amount not to exceed $116,000, and authorize the mayor and the CAO to execute the contract on behalf of the district, and direct staff to repost. So this was, so the RFP went out. There was one proposal that came in, and that was the one proposal. Councillor Epp.
I'll move option 1.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by, I'll second that. Discussion. Councillor Epp.
Yes, they've been trying to find someone, like no one responded to the initial RFP, so it went out again, and so they did get this proposal, so it seems reasonable that we can now move forward with that, with the plan, with the fund.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. For discussion, sure, go ahead.
I'm just not clear, so is the request for $116,000 from the district, or is this grant? No, it's not.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Councillor Epp.
We've got the grant, we just
Okay,
didn't have the company.
that's what I was wondering.
Marilyn, a question maybe to Councillor Epp. Sorry, what was my question? Is there a time limit that we're running up against in terms of the use of the grant money? And I ask that because I feel like I could sure benefit from hearing more from the chief on this. And I'm a little leery. The company we've selected is probably, or that has appeared and offered their services, probably top notch. But I still would like to hear back from the chief in terms of her faith in them and a little bit more about what's going on. I had a glance at this just prior to the meeting, but I don't really know much more.
I don't know if there's a deadline.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think actually there is a deadline. There's a deadline for the end of the year. I think it's the end of the year, and that's why she wants to move on it. We've only had, the RFP's been out there on, I think, Civic Info and other places. There was only one. That's why she wants us to move on it before we lose the money. Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Gray.
When did we realize we had somebody? Because this just came in like this afternoon.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, not sure.
I just feel like we're being rushed.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that, that's why I'm asking.
Mhm.
It's like
Councillor Gray.
third time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Councillor Donaldson. Likewise, it just feels a bit awkward. I guess what I appreciate here is it's signed by the fire chief, and she said she's got confidence in the particular applicant because they have done other work for us back a few years ago, and she was satisfied with that. So I think I'm ready to support it on her recommendation, but I think we need to do better in terms of getting information beforehand so we're clear. The one question I have, and I don't think it speaks against the motion that's been made, but and I realize the fire chief works very closely with Shannon Nation, but I'm seeing here that there will be interviews with elders and community discussions and historical data collected. So in the short experience I've had on the Mary Hill project, it would make sense for me for our fire chief to discuss this with Shannon Council, the particular group, logically, no message against them, but just make sure that they're comfortable with this particular contractor. Not that they wouldn't be, I'm not suggesting that, but just to go through that process of checking in. I think you're working all the time with the chief and council, so I don't imagine there's any issue, but I'd like to have that check done. The other thing that I'm interested in is that when I look on the descriptor page, the kind of risks we're looking at are weather, shoreline erosion, drought, flooding, severe storms. These might be people who would be quite helpful in looking at that question about ditching. We've been thinking, ditching might, we're going to have to do a lot of ditching probably, but there's an idea that we might do some other things like not ditch in some areas. And so these group might be people who are able to advise on those kinds of questions. Don't know, but just comes to mind when we talk about flooding and risk reduction.
Councillor Schuger, did you wish to speak to this?
The one question I have is whether the chief might come to one of the committee meetings next week to give us a primer on this. And I feel like I'd be much more comfortable rendering this decision. I mean, I'm not going to oppose, I just feel like I don't really have any deep I have no background on what's being asked of us, right? So.
Okay. I think she presented this last year, and we moved forward on allowing her to proceed with that.
Okay.
I'm sorry that everybody's not. Don't you remember that, Councillor Epp?
well, not specifically, but like with our projects, it does come, you know, we did get the information on it, and now, and then the next step was to put out the RFP, so that's what we were waiting for until then, but we did approve her going for it, and
Yeah. Good. Go ahead, Councillor.
Maybe through the chair, we can just ask if Mr. Pike's happy with us proceeding.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Pike.
you, Mayor, and through the council. Okay, so a few things here. To submit the grant, council would have had to approve that, so you've been briefed on the full criteria of the grant and the expectations of the work to be done in the grant. And so the RFP was written on that, and all of the criteria were addressed in the proposal. The first RFP went out, we got 0 proposals. Second RFP went out, and we have received 1 proposal. The proponent likely is scheduled up for the next 2 or 3 years. They have offered to do this study for us in their scheduled time. If we delay, we're likely going to lose our only proposal. And council has already blessed this grant, so I'm not understanding why we can't move ahead with this recommendation. Thanks.
Councillor Gray?
So that's very helpful. And then the only action I'd ask for staff, as I said, subsequent to the, not part of the motion, but that some conversations happen between staff and Shannon.
I'm not willing to give a contingency that the Shannon First Nations have veto on this, but I am sure that the chief has talked to Shannon First Nations about this project, about the proposal, and also they are involved in the emergency management systems that we have in place here. So I'm quite sure that she has had those conversations. Councillor Gray.
If that's happened, then it's okay to say the action for staff would be that it happened.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table from Councillor Eck, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and as far as I know, just looking to our Deputy Corporate Officer to see if I missed anything this evening. No, I haven't. Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we have a few minutes for question period, but not many. Go ahead.
Just on the
can you come
last
to the microphone?
Sure.
And identify yourself with your road as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Brent Donaldson, Chelsea. One of the things I noted on the last agenda item was there's no mention of wildfire, and probably that's one of the biggest threats from an environmental point of view, certainly in the Chosen. So I didn't see it listed there, but certainly I think if it's missing, if it could be added, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to ask a question? I'm seeing nobody, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you being here
It's so
tonight.
challenging. Like, we discussed this. I just have no recollection.
So many of us, there's been so many changes.